Hello and welcome to the Evercade Retreat. Gene Joke here, and today I'm adding the Legend of Wukong from the Pico Collection 3 to my ever-growing list where I rank every Evercade game ever. Originally developed for the Mega Drive in 1996 for Eastern markets, it was translated by the Super Fighter team in 2008 and released as an aftermarket game, which somewhere around that point is where Pico came into the picture, I guess. Anyway, Legend of Wukong is a JRPG loosely based upon Journey to the West. I say loosely, I mean, not like I've ever read the original novel, but as a kid I did watch that Monkey Magic show that was badly dubbed over and played various games based upon the same source material, including that one with Andy Serkis on the 360. But I'm pretty sure this is the only one I've come across that involves a time-travelling teenager. Being a JRPG, and a 16-bit one at that, this game plays largely like you would expect, which does mean it's very easy to pick up and play, well, assuming you've played other games of the genre anyway. At first, the graphics do seem quite reasonable. There's some little cutscenes at the beginning which aren't too badly done, while there's nothing amazing about the overland map or even the combat sprites. They literally seem quite, well, more than functional. They do the job. They're bright, colourful and cheerful, and it seems decent enough. I mean, it's not a genre that generally has amazing in-game graphics. It's usually the presentation as a whole, or the design of the larger sprites that shine. But here, while nothing is completely terrible, there are a number of enemy sprites where you're looking at them trying to work out what the hell they're supposed to be. Some backgrounds, well, some definitely aren't as well designed as others, and some even look quite unfinished. The background environments are very repetitive, and later in the game, whole villages get copied wholesale, with only names and dialogue being changed. One thing that often stands out in JRPGs is some of the magic effects, especially the late games of hyper-powerful spells. Here, they look pathetic. All in all, the visuals are a mixed bag, but it's never better than average. Luckily, it's not a genre that really relies on graphics, so I suppose that's fine. The sound is quite minimal. The sound effects are what you'd expect for the genre, with beeps for the menu selections, the odd crashing and crunching sound for attacks, but little else. The music is quite good, but there aren't many tracks, so you will hear them over and over and over and over during the 20 odd hours you'll play this game for, if you play the whole thing, that is. Normally this would be my cue to talk about the gameplay, but this being a JRPG, let's talk about the story. I think the narrative is quite important here. Or it should be. Being based upon Journey to the West, you'd assume it has the foundation of a good story, but the writing is appalling. The story is very simple, it's not engaging, there's no character to it. This also ties into the quests, or lack of. It's a very linear game, and with the narrative failing to engage you, it's all down to the gameplay, which at first seems okay. It's very generic JRPG stuff. You've got your turn-based combat, you navigate overland maps, go into villages, talk to people, so on and so forth. There are shops where you buy items, there's some inventory management, there's weapon upgrades, armour upgrades, there's even places to gamble. Let's start with the overland maps. They do look fairly basic, but functional, and you'll navigate them, and every so often you'll get attacked, and it does seem that you get attacked quite a lot, but that's par for the course for the JRPG, so what can you say? Navigating them can be a bit of a pain, particularly later in the game. There's areas you think your characters will be able to fit through to access what's beyond, and you can't. Or sometimes you can. It's a bit inconsistent in the hit detection of some of the objects, which can lead to more wandering around than is ideal. The village maps actually suffer the same issue. Some can be a pain to navigate, with the NPCs often getting in your way. And the NPC dialogue is usually nonsensical rubbish. There are houses you can go into, although you don't get to see the inside of the house, you just see someone who'll talk to you, often with utterly pointless dialogue, although sometimes it is quite funny when they make jokes at the expense of JRPG tropes. Oh no, a burglar and things like that. Annoyingly, there's a separate store for weapons, for armour, for medical stuff, and there's a temple in each village, which serves no purpose. Actually, there's a lot of stuff in this game that doesn't serve a purpose. Perhaps the game was rushed towards the end of development, because it does feel a bit unfinished in some ways. And finally, I suppose I should mention the dungeon maps, which do also suffer the same problem with navigation as the others, although to a lesser degree. But as everything looks very, well, it all looks basically the same. There's no defining landmarks. You can find yourself wandering around in circles in some of these large dungeons, especially when you're being attacked every 5 minutes. And the layout of them is completely uninspired. They're just a basic map where you wander around until you find the boss. And all that would be fine if the combat was good, and it is basically functional, but it's very repetitive and gets quite tedious. It lacks that spark. It isn't quite balanced enough to really get you exciting. The moves aren't flashy enough. The enemy moves and tactics are very basic, and they stay the same pretty much the whole way through the entire game. Interestingly, the attack function has an option for multiple or single attacks, sort of like a semi-auto battle, only you can't use magic or potions or healing or anything like that, which is fine when it's a surefire thing and you're just going to beat them, but yeah, it can be a pain and leads to getting some trouble. But it defaults, if you're just hammering through the buttons, it defaults to multiple. So if you're getting bored and trying to rush through, you can make a mistake and lead you into a bit more trouble. It's worth noting that you start off just with Wukong, with you recruiting your companions throughout the game, which makes the early part of the game more challenging and I suppose more interesting as a result. But of course, if Wukong dies, it's game over and you've got to start the whole thing again. So you'll find yourself grinding a lot till you level up, which makes the beginning of the game even more tedious. You can give yourself a bit of a boost by gambling in the towns and exploiting that. The gambling is very basic and easy to exploit. I'm sure it won't take you long to work that out. When you have recruited your other characters, you quickly learn that the character advancement or the leveling system, well, there's no decisions to be made, and there's a total of 3 characters, so you won't be changing your team anytime soon, or ever. Ultimately, it's as bare bones a JRPG as I've ever played. While everything is technically functional, it's not engaging, and the clunky menu system doesn't help. Now, I realise that is partly down to the era. RPGs tended to be more clunky on consoles back then. There's also a lack of information or lack of stats on many things. Many of your weapons and armour, you have no idea if they're more or less powerful than what you already have, and you essentially have to equip them to see how they compare. Also, while the game is very linear and knowing what you need to do is generally quite obvious, I did find later on in the game, because I found myself skipping through the dialogue very quickly because I was bored, I might miss something and then not really know what I had to do and end up wandering around more as a result. I'm sure I could list off a whole bunch of other shortcomings, but one I do think is important to note is a bug I came across in the game. Now, if I recall correctly, there were a number of problems people had with this game when it was first launched on Evercade. I can't remember the exact details, but I know it got to the point where people would have to restart the game, and essentially it was broken. They did patch it and fix that, but later on in the game there's a section, I think it's in Charcoal City, where you get attacked by these things called Saint Beasts, and it's a battle that you can't win. So I lost the fight with most of my characters being poisoned. After the fight, you wake up in another nearby village and you've been fully healed and everything, and it does the plot thing, and after that you just go back adventuring. But during the first bit of combat I was winning, all my characters had plenty of health, and all of a sudden it'd say defeated and give me a game over. I thought maybe the poison thing had glitched out and my characters were dying, because if your character is poisoned in the battle and not healed, while you're on the overland map they'll continue to take damage, so you have to use an antidote or cure poison spell to get rid of it. So I thought maybe it is a glitched version of that. Not so, because it didn't work, and I thought my run was over. With having put in, I don't know, probably about 17-18 hours of gameplay into it at that time, there was no way I was going to restart it. But I did recall that when I'd heard about the glitches before, there was something to do with using the in-game saves. So every time I went to a town and rested in an inn, I would save my progress on the in-game save, although I generally loaded all my games from the save states. So I looked online, see if I could find with anyone else having the same problem, and sure enough there's a Reddit post and a few other things detailing the same issue on the Evercade. One thing suggested loading the save file, the in-game save file that is, from the menu screen of the game. So that's what I did, and the game worked fine that way. So if you do decide you want to play the game through, I would recommend that every time you're in a village and rest at an inn, save the game with the in-game save. Don't just rely on the save states. Anyway, I think that almost wraps this review. It is a game that I have no nostalgia for. I'd never played it for the Evercade, blah blah blah. And overall, it is a functional JRPG, but it is a very dull one. And to place it on my overall ranking list of every Evercade game ever, I'm going to put it above Skate Cat but below Aquaventure. And this has been a very long review by the standard of these ones, so that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.